seen how there are mutations that took place in our body. We saw how mutations could be beneficial as well as mutations can cause a lot of disease. But now we are going to see how this molecular makeup is going to allow you to sustain in your habitat, or allow you to give a better chance at survival. So when you see this insect here, it's you at first glance you cannot make out that whether it is a living thing or is it the bark, right? Now that is because it's camouflaging with the environment. And why does it do so? And next you saw that most of the most of the organisms that you studied have the same molecular makeup, right? When we did the DNA translation, replication, and then the translation, then the protein, everything is same, just some parts here and there were changing, and that's how we saw that there are so much of variety of organisms. And when we saw there are so many types of organisms, we saw that one kind of organisms have many species in them. Say, for example, this is your bird that was found in Galapagos Island, which all four of them were from the same kind of organism. I mean, they were same kind of birds, just that their beaks were quite different. Their finches were quite different from each other. So why all of this is present, even though we studied about the same thing, and even when we studied about the same thing, why is it so different from each other, is what you'll be seeing in natural selection. Okay. Now, first we'll study a little bit about evolution. Now, we have studied that we have come from apes, and we started standing up, our hair started reducing, we had protruding foreheads which started going back. All that we have studied so far. But what exactly is evolution? Now, this picture you might have seen quite a number of times in your textbooks. This particular picture that you can see of how an ape has turned into a man. But the problem is, this is just half the picture, not even half the picture, right? You have so many organisms that were there before it came to apes, and this shows that this is the stop of evolution. There can be a much better advanced human being after this as well, right? If you see that our ancestors could process only a certain amount of information, we can process a lot more. Maybe our future generations can process even more, and they can be better at tasks or something like that. So this picture is actually not showing you the actual evolution, right? So I don't agree with this picture. When you see, there are n number of pictures that will tell you about evolution, just that most of the textbooks rely on this, right? Now, evolution is nothing but you have an idea that there were living species before you, and you have evolved from them. And at present day, you have undergone decent amount of modifications where you can survive better to this environment, to the current environment. Now, you can see that there is so much of difference even here. Like, just if I go just two places here, this man is completely erect. This man is slightly bent, and he has protruding forehead. This one has a forehead a little bit behind. The chin here is a little bit ahead. The chin here goes back. And then the neck, the spinal cord, the calf muscles, all of them are quite different. Now, just one step behind, if I go, there is so many differences. Now, imagine if I start comparing the man to the gorilla, right? So it's going to be quite different, but still there is so much of unity. Now, if I go to find similarities, you will find n number of similarities up to your DNA level, right? So how these organisms evolved based on their or suited to their environments is what you're going to see in evolution. So far, is it clear?
Yes.
All right. Now, you have studied about species, right? like the genus, species, family.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we have seen that species change over time, right? They don't remain the same. Now old species start turning into newer species, which are related to the older species, yes, but then they are in better equipped to the environment. Now here, if I see, this is an actual proper evolution of man. We start from Monera, that is your amoebas, the single-celled animals or single-celled organisms. Yeah, your single-celled organisms here, and we go up to man, right? Now, we don't say it's just from your primitive animals or apes to man. The picture that you saw here prior to this just showed you apes to man. That is not your actual evolution. We have started from a single-celled organism, went up, started forming limbs, went up, started forming jaws and bones, and then went up and started forming pouches for our young ones and hair and all of that, and then we reached your man. So this actual process of evolution, and this was stated in your very longest, oldest books, which were giving you the proper pedigree of man. Now, evolution in itself is a very powerful theory that explains why we are so different and yet why we are so connected, right? There is a lot of problem revolving evolution. Now, the first time when Charles Darwin proposed the theory of evolution and told that man has come out of apes, this guy was about to be sentenced to death by the church. Did you know this?
No, it's actually my first time. I know about Charles Darwin and
Mm-hmm.
his theory on natural selection, but I didn't know about that.
Yeah, the problem is now he came from a background where they studied the Bible, and they believed that God created man and woman, and then we came out of them, right? But he suggested that no, that might not have happened. There were animals, and we came out of animals. Now imagine somebody's telling you that there's a higher spiritual person sitting and he created you, and you come up with the theory saying that no, I have come out of monkeys. Right, it's quite controversial, right? And this is way like when there were no computers, or when there was nothing to support his theory actually, right? He had to go and find his own theory. So imagine at that time hypothesizing that you came out of monkeys and going ahead and trying to prove it as well. Even till today, till today, when you ask some of the priests or some of the churchmen, if you say, like, do you support Darwin's theory? They only say that God bless the souls that believe in false rumors. Imagine that, right? I mean, um, every religion has its own say that is there, but then sentencing a guy to death, like trying to take away his life because he tried to prove that there was something else, is quite, quite controversial on its own. But then once he started forming his own theory, once he started giving his background support to the theory, a lot of scientists came in support to him. But by the time the poor guy died, and after that he received recognition for his work, right? And to prove his theories, he went to Galapagos Island, wherein he saw a lot of animals that did evolve in to survive better in that environment, wherein maybe there was steeper water or steeper food, the beak started growing longer. If the food was supposed to be larger, the beak started in becoming a little larger to carry all the food. So all of that happened in that island, and he studied quite a few, quite a few techniques and quite a few theories that he had just hypothesized that he saw that was actually happening in that island, right? So this is the island that he went to study about it, and he got quite a few proofs that his theories were actually real. Now, what he studied and what we are doing today is we are starting with something called as your variation, overproduction, selection, and reproduction. Now, what exactly is that? Now, you have natural selection where your nature is selecting whether you are going to survive or not. Now, how nature does that? Now, you are some individual wherein you have inherited about few traits that traits you're going to pass on by reproduction, and you're going to pass on this at higher rates with a lot of reproduction to other individuals. Now, if those traits are beneficial, you will be selected by nature. If those traits are not beneficial to you, they are causing you more harm, you will be eliminated by your nature itself. Now, this is called a driver mechanism, wherein your modifications and your evolutions go hand in hand. Now, say for example, your evolution is a vehicle or a car or something. The person driving that vehicle will be your modifications. Now, unless there is modification, there will be no evolution. And unless there is evolution, there will be no modifications. Okay. And now when we talk about variations, we'll see this entire story. Now here we have a variety of bugs. You have brown bugs, you have blue bugs, and green bugs. Now this shows that even though you have a certain kind of genes, you can variate in them and create a lot of phenotypes in your body. Now because of that phenotypes, we have 3 different colored bugs here. Now, these 3 different colored bugs will overpopulate a certain environment. Now, why are they overpopulating them? Because they want to compete against each other's survival. Now, the green wants to compete with blue, the blue wants to compete with brown, and so on, right? So they are trying to compete with each other for better survival. Then comes in your selection. Now, what happens in your selection? I think I have a bigger picture here, right? Yeah. Now, what happens in your selection is the problem that occurred here is the brown got camouflaged with the soil, but the blue and green were very visible to the predators, that is the birds here, because of their bright color, right? Now, because of that, your birds started eating them as their food. And only the brown ones survived better because they were not easily recognized in the camouflage, because of the camouflage. Now that again will lead to reproduction. Now when we go to reproduction, you can see that there is increase in the number of brown bugs because they were quite likely survived the selection here. Now this implies that when your mutation or your modification is beneficial to you, you are better equipped at surviving. So far is this clear?
Yeah.
All right.
Wait, so is there a difference between artificial selection and natural selection?
Yes.
Okay.
Natural selection is when the nature is trying to select you based on your modification, whether it's beneficial or not. Artificial is when the humans are trying to select a certain trait of that particular organism for their benefit.
Oh,
we'll
okay.
do that in the next chapter itself.
Okay.
All right. Now, here in natural selection, you have individuals that are going to have favorable phenotypes. Now that favorable phenotypes will help them to survive and reproduce better and pass that traits to the next generation as well. It's not going to just stay to that generation. Now for that, because of that, they will have a lot of fitness. Now, when we talk about fitness, I'm not talking about having more muscles or eating healthy and all that. When we talk about fitness in your evolution or in your natural selection, we talk about how much of a reproductive success you can have. That is, how many offsprings can have a normal, survive better. And when we talk about survival of the fittest, we don't say that me having more muscles and me having, you can say me having better lifestyle, I will survive better. It's nothing like that. If I can survive better in the changing environment, maybe if there is too much of climatic changes that are happening and I'm still not having any disease because of that, that is when I'm going to be called the fittest person. So survival of the fittest does not mean that you're strong or fast or something. That is, if you're adjusting better to the environment, that is your survival of the fittest. Okay. Now, here you can see how the living things change when the environmental changes took place. Now, this is a geological time scale where you can see a lot of major evolutionary events. Okay. Now, here you can see the pre-Cambrian era that you had your first animals that came into play, like maybe a smaller insect or something like that. And that went on to become your vertebrates, your plants, your amphibians, and you came up to humans. Now, before we come to humans, we got dinosaurs. Now, dinosaurs were not equipped to have a lot of climatic changes that happened quite sudden. Now, during these dinosaurs phases, we had 5 major extinctions that took place. Okay, and in the first extinction, that was somewhere during the Devonian era, everything washed off. Second, third, fourth, fifth, a lot of them washed out completely. Now, I don't know, you might have been quite young when this movie came out called 2012. Have you heard about it or watched it maybe?
I've heard about it. Yeah, I've definitely heard about it, but I don't know what it's about.
Okay, there was a theory that said on December 24th, 2012, the entire world was going to end, right? So there was this theory that said there will be a lot of sea levels rising, floods coming in, and all that. And based on that based on that theory, there was a movie that was carried out saying how the world would end. And based on that, we also have a song from, I guess, Britney Spears, that takes up the idea from there. So what exactly they were trying, even though the theory did not happen, but there is a saying that there will be another major extinction that will take place. I mean, it has to take place. That's what has been happening for years to come. Now, even when these major extinctions did take place, there were many animals that did survive that extinction. Okay, we have a lot of animals that are primitive, which don't even have eyes that evolved for them, that are still alive. Now, that shows that if you are um, better adapted to that environment, even though you don't have so much of variation in your body, and still that surviving tactics or that surviving methods or that surviving genes are passed on to your next generations, that is what calls you the fittest. Now, we have reached the Cenozoic era here, and we have come a lot of years ahead, but then still there is a lot of chance that we might be washed out completely. Okay. Um, okay. Yeah. We missed we missed 2 slides. We'll do that as well. Now, we are going to take we are going to take 2 different animals and their generations. Now, my first animal is my mice. My second animal here is my owl. Now, the owl is a natural predator for your mice. I mean, they feed on your mice. Now, here in my first generation, this is my first generation of mice. In this generation, I have 2 dark furred mice and 3 light furred mice. And in this, I have 2 normal sighted owls and 1 with a better eyesight. I mean, 2 very poor eyesight, you can say, and 1 with a better eyesight owls. Now, in the second generation, when you have reproduced, when the owls also have reproduced, the poor, because the poor eyesighted were many, you now have many poor eyesighted owls as well. And good, I mean, the good eyesight also is going to reproduce, but then they are few in number. You can see just 2 versus your 4. And now the mice with the light colored are going to be eaten more, because even though they have bad eyesight, they can easily make out the light colored fur, light furred animals, because they're easily detectable. Now, when I go to my third generation, um, you can see that the light ones have decreased because they were hunted down by the bad eyesight ones. And the ones with dark fur are still surviving better compared to your light ones. Now here what happens is the poor eyesight will not find much of the food, because the number of light colored mice have gone down, and they cannot find them quite easily because they themselves have very bad eyesight and they die of starvation. Okay, and the good eyesight one can make out the light colored ones very easily. Even the dark colored ones, they can find the dark colored ones, but then they can see the light ones easily. So they are the ones that eating the light ones, but the bad eyesight ones will not find them so soon, and they um, don't survive. Now, in the fourth generations, because the good eyesight ones have eaten all the light colored fur, you don't have any light furred animals here, just the dark ones. And because the bad eyesight ones did not find food, they died of starvation. They don't reproduce as well. So in the fourth generation, after all the selections done here, in the fourth generation, you have the dark furred mice that have better chances of survival, and the good eyesight ones who have better chance of survival. Now, what does it teach you? That according to your environment, if you have that modification in you to survive better, you can reproduce better and have offsprings as well with better modifications. But in case you don't modify yourself according to the environment, you will go extinct. The nature itself will not allow you to survive. These owls died because of starvation. These mice died because they could be easily detected by even the bad eyesight owls, right? So is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. One more important thing, natural selection will only happen with populations. It's not only on one particular organism. It happens in groups, right? And organisms cannot change their phenotype suddenly. Now, say for example, here if the owl saw that the good eyesight one is surviving better, it just suddenly cannot change its eyesight and make it good. It has to happen for generations to come, right? So two important things here, that it doesn't your natural selection is not only on one organism, it happens in a population. And second thing, it will not happen in just the next generation. It will take generations together to get that modification. So far, are you following?
Yes.
All right. All right. Next, we saw that from many different variations, you came to one single variation. But then there is also a chance where natural selection, where from one species you can, speciate into different kind of species as well. Now, here your genetic variations is happening on your population. It's not only going to happen on one individual. So that genetic population is going to go ahead into many different varieties. Now, in case there is no variation that is taking place, there can be no natural selection, because your nature has very less, it does not have much options to select from. So then the natural selection will not take place. So here you have an example of giraffes, wherein These giraffes can speciate into different kinds, wherein you might have the tall ones, you might have the short ones, you might have longer necks, shorter necks, different kind of spots, different color coats, all of that can happen. And anyone which is surviving better to their environment, say for example, I have a lot of different I have an environment where my spotting is very important because they will help me in better camouflage. So those will survive better there. Then I might have a region where I have very tall trees. So my food is in those tall trees. So I should have a longer neck. So I will survive better if I have a longer neck. So such kind of variation is required when you are trying to survive in the environment.